politics has erupted after the Indian Army did not provide a guard of honor during the last rites of Agniveer Amritpal Singh, who passed away in Jammu and Kashmir on the 11th of October by suicide. Amritpal Singh was cremated without the military guard of honor in his native district in Mansa, Punjab, after which the army has now issued a statement wherein they've clarified that self-inflicted injuries or deaths by suicide are not accorded with a guard of honor. The politics, of course, continues, but we try to have a more real conversation with the guests with us on the broadcast, Major General Shashi Asthana. We also have with us Dr. PVS Rao, and with me is Dr. Pankaj Kumar, Chairman of the Healers Psychiatry Center. Major General Shashi Asthana, the military has now released the statement, and I'll go bit by bit about what they've said. But firstly, if you could also explain to our viewers, sir, they've been very clear about the fact that as far as self-inflicted injuries or death by suicide is concerned, it does not warrant a guard of honor.
Peace and deepest condolences to the family who have lost their boy. I wish he was alive. And of course, may God give strength to their families to bear the loss. As far as the guard of honor is concerned, there is a procedure and there are certain regulations. Now, in army, any self-inflicted injury or gunshot wound or suicide, all these are considered as offences under Army Act. Now, firstly, let me put this debate to rest. There is no difference between Agniveer and soldier as far as the cremation is concerned. So, if instead of Amritpal Singh, if it was any other soldier with 10 years of service, and if this was the outcome, then he would have also been, he would have also not been given guard of honor. So that's first part of it. So there is no difference. That Agniveer debate is irrelevant. The second issue is that army has a procedure. Now, let's say somebody, there is a gunshot wound and he was on sentry duty, as I am told. Now, when an incident like this happens, the army conducts a court of inquest, and we also inform the civil police. So that time the police is also brought in. Everybody knows, everybody goes through the entire, the body is not moved till the time the civil police comes in. And thereafter, the post-mortem is conducted. And thereafter, generally, one knows as to what exactly has happened. And thereafter, a future course is that subsequently the body is dispatched to the family, which was done in this case. And subsequently, a court of inquiry is held, which I am sure it must be on. Now, as far as this boy is concerned, the family will not suffer as far as the financial disbursement is concerned. He has an insurance, which is about 50 lakhs, which he will get. Then there is also a Seva Nidhi scheme where he contributes something and the government also contributes something. That will come to about 2 to 3 lakhs. If it was a Agniveer who had perhaps died on line of duty or while performing a duty, he would have got something to the tune of about 1.1 or 1.2 crores or something like that. So this is how the army treats these cases. My only request to all the social media activists and the rest of the media is that please respect the privacy of the family. The family must have gone through trauma, and more so when the news is not all that good. In that case, a privacy for the family is very important. And therefore, I think there is a need for everybody to be conscious of, not to unnecessarily keep asking family as to what has happened, etc., etc. As far as the army procedures are concerned, there is no change in the procedure. These are exactly the same procedures being followed. It was being followed during our time too, and it is being followed now also. There is no change at all.
Major Shashi Asthana, coming back to the statement by the army, and thank you for clarifying that for our viewers who are also watching, but there are some disturbing statistics that have been shared where the army has said that between 100 to 140 soldiers have died every year of suicide or self-inflicted injuries since 2001. So just taking this aspect forward, because I think a lot of times people forget that if you're in the military or if you're in the army, you are at the end of the day a human being. What changes are required, Major General Asthana, to ensure that matters such as suicide or any sort of mental health problems are addressed in a much faster and a much better fashion, even for our Jawans? I'm actually not sure of what sort of facilities currently exist to ensure good mental health of our soldiers.
Okay, let me answer that. As far as the suicide cases are concerned, Army is fully conscious of the cases, and this pattern is being studied all over, not only within the Army but outside the Army in the think tanks also. Like in USI, we did a study on it. Now, what has happened is the soldier per se is not detached from the society. All the societal pressures are also equally applicable to the soldier. Now, what has happened is, if you see the percentage of the soldiers who are dying of suicide or some self-inflicted injuries or things like that, and if you see the overall percentage in the country, it is not more than what is the overall percentage of the country. So, therefore, that is not a cause of, because the Army also, I think we have the second largest army in the world. So the numbers are very heavy in terms of, and secondly, what has happened is nowadays, and what we have seen is even in our service, earlier when we did not had mobiles, that time this percentage was slightly slow. Today what happens is, even if let's say your cow has not given milk, the wife will ring up the husband, and on the border he will get to know that. So every single problem of the house, he is translated to the man on ground when he is doing duty. So therefore what happens is the mental pressures have increased because of the free connectivity, the kind of connectivity which we have. So there are certain issues. As far as you said, what are the facilities existing? We have the provision of psychiatrists in the Army. In various hospitals, we have the psychiatrist. There is also psychiatric treatment given to people who are, shall I say, who are seen to be mentally weak. And we also, everybody goes through a medical test when he is actually being employed for the operational duties, especially in the line of control and maybe high altitude. So during that time, there is a sense of isolation. Now, a lot is being done to remove the sense of isolation. Like we have televisions everywhere, we have good communication everywhere. Earlier, we used to actually, and then all kinds of informations are being fed to him. So I think the transparency is there. The figure is certainly not alarming in a manner if you consider the rest of the armies in the world, or if you consider in percentage terms the overall Indian society otherwise. Devika.
Okay. Dr. Rao, I'm sure you've also read about the case. What do you think should be the way forward in these sort of matters? Because it seems as though the family here, a grieving family, has unfortunately fallen victim to ill thought out politics at this point in time, where without knowing the correct procedures, without knowing the correct rules and regulations, certain promises have been made to a grieving family. This matter perhaps has been blown out of proportion for the family itself, which has at the end of the day lost their son.
Good evening, Devika, and to the panelists and to all your viewers. The politics of this kind will only harm the security of India, and it will cause more confusion. So my only request to all such people is to empathize with the family rather than play politics and create doubts and confusion, and use it for political goals. Now, as far as suicide is concerned, Defense Ministry last year in July released the numbers as 800 suicides in the last 5 years out of a 1.4 million active armed personnel in India. So the suicide rate in the armed forces is less than in the general population.
Okay.
Second, The US Army started investigating it because their suicide rate, which was less than the general population of US, is now more than the US general population. And it's not that the Indian armed forces haven't done any work on it. They started a mental health program in 2009, which was focused on stress management. They found that those at high risk were, especially in the last 2 decades, has been due to prolonged stress, exposure to counterinsurgency and counterterrorism. It is, instead of having a war suddenly out of the blue for a short time, you are having a continued process through the year, through years together. So this is causing a lot of, obviously will cause a lot of stress. I'm sure Major General Shashi Asthana will agree on it. If I'm not mistaken, he was with the Assam Rifles and would have faced a lot of counterterrorism and counter-insurgency problems. Added to this are things like depression about what your future is likely to be. In the armed forces, you are never sure where you may be injured, you may be disabled, you may be killed, and what will happen to your family if you are killed. All these kind of issues are there, and this is what this is one problem for depression and anxiety, which leads to this. Now, I mentioned the U.S. Army study. It showed that 90 to 95% of those who committed suicide in the U.S. Army, when they went into the details at autopsy, they found that they had diagnosable mental health issues at the time of death. So these need to be detected in advance, and these need to be looked up and managed. Now, the defense has a Defense Institute of Psychological Research, and through this institute, they have been researching and making efforts for timely prevention of suicidal tendencies. And they found that the major cause of suicide in the Indian Army was not being able to get timely leave in people who are in a disturbed state of mind.
Right.
And these are the following measures they announced. This is in a Defense Ministry statement to the Parliament. They said, one, we are trying to provide better pay, allowances, food, clothes, married accommodation, travel facilities, schooling, recreation, welfare meetings. They also decided to try and decrease the workload and provide timely leave, and also to improve interpersonal relationship. Secondly, yoga and meditation has been taken up on a big scale to reduce stress levels. Also, they have provided psychological counselors, and they have started a Mansik Sahayata helpline in the Army and Air Force. And they have also introduced programs like Milap and Sahyog in the Northeast to reduce stress. This was also done in Kashmir, and I'm sure Major General Shashi Asthana would be aware of it, where you meet the civilian population whom you are trying to protect. Yes. The problem with this counterinsurgency is you are trying to protect your own people from insurgents in your own society.
Yes.
And mental health awareness is provided now during pre-induction training also. And they have also set up mental health centers in Mumbai, Visakhapatnam, Kochi, Port Blair, Goa, and Karwar. So there is no shortage of efforts by the Indian Armed Forces. So let's keep politics out of it and not get involved in this kind of thing. And frustrations, emotional problems like with marriage or various other interpersonal issues, fear of punishment because you have done something like you have got into alcohol or drug abuse, or you have done some misconduct. These are all things which lead to suicide and bad relationship, and also post-traumatic stress if you have been involved in continuous management of these problems.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I was coming to that in just a moment, sir. Post-traumatic stress. Dr. Pankaj Kumar, bringing you into the conversation, sir. As Dr. P.S.V. Rao was pointing out, that one of the major reasons for depression can also be thinking about your future after be serving in the armed forces, for a lot of the young people who do it for a short period of time. what do you think can be done in order to ensure that some sort of psychological or psychiatric help continues to be extended even after someone has stopped serving, say, in the armed forces?
First of all, my heart goes for the family and the lost one. My condolences to the family. And secondly, before I start my comment, I would like to clarify on record. I hold my Indian Army with the utmost glory and pride. Nothing against them, not a word against them, and I can't say anything against them. Whatever Shashi Saab has and other Dr. Saab has said, I agree in a lot of points. But as you asked me, I would tell you my personal experience and my colleagues' experience in our civilians' life. I am not a psychiatrist of military, but I am a civilian psychiatrist and I have experience of more than decades. So what we see in our practice, our ex-army men who come to our clinics and tell for certain treatments, we've seen over the period of years, they tell us the stories of armies, As we all know, stress is one of the major factors of depression or in their psychiatric illnesses. In army, stress is multiple times higher as compared to any other job that we all know.
Absolutely,
due to certain unknown reasons, their type of posting, lifestyle, living away from the family for longer durations, not able to meet them, and other known and unknown causes leading to this, adding to this stress. Number one. Number two, I don't know whether you know it or not. My patients who have been in army, they have told me in all ranks, not just any lower rank, all ranks, I would say, not one, multiple times. They are a system of a ACR, or they have a file. If they visit to a psychiatrist and they disclose their psychiatric problems to a psychiatrist in military per se, then they have a red marking in their file, which afterwards they are not given in sensitive postings. There is a caution with arms. Probably I understand the reason for that. In certain illness you should have. And they are probably kept on, they are treated slightly different as compared to their army personnel, even in promotion and postings also. So for that, it's a negative. So most of them hardly visit the psychiatrist in army, although, yes, when it is overtly seen by the colleagues and seniors, they are sent to a psychiatrist in army, that we all know. But minor issues, minor stress or other problems, which probably they can hide, they try to hide it, or try to go to another psychiatrist other than military for help, because they don't want that red thing in their file.
And what you're saying is that the stigma around taking help, around psychology, psychiatry is within the army as well.
Yes, that is a big change army needs to do. Although they have started, as Roksab has said, they have been doing a lot of programs. I understand that's a really welcome thing, but on the surface thing, the root cause, deep bottom, they has to go to the root cause and deep bottom, they have to work there. As Shashi Saab, Major Saab said, mentally weak. No, that is not the right way. I'm really sorry to say. Then it's an illness and seen like any other illness. This is the thing which adds to stigma. They are not mentally weak. No, that is not the right word to say. They are illness like any thyroid, BP, sugar. There are a lot of illness in the physical body. Similarly, it's a mental illness, which should be seen as just like another illness, and they should not be treated separately or with a stigma. They should not be looked down upon. They should be given equal dignity, equal treatment, and equal opportunities like anyone else, except sensitive areas that require certain precautions. That's I totally agree. And on other hand, our army, we all know, are always battered from all sides. So I really tell the politics should be kept aside, because army personnel are already under a lot of stress. If this will add to the stress,
but
they should be let.
Dr. Pankaj Kumar, I understand your point completely, and those are valid issues that you raise. The fact that people within the army, as far as your experience goes, they don't want to visit a psychiatrist or a psychologist by their own volition. Unless someone points it out to them that they must make that visit. While I understand your point that they must be treated equally, but at the same time, there's a reason why this entire conversation is very tricky, because at the end of the day, when you're in the army, you are almost on a perpetual basis serving in some sensitive area or another, which requires you to have a great deal of mental stability. Not just physical stamina and strength, but also a lot of mental clarity and stability.
Yes, I agree. That's why I was coming to the next point, which you very rightly asked. There should be extensive mental health screening programs. by army itself. I'm not sure they must be having their programs, but extensive and welcoming without discrimination and without putting on records. And if they find some pointers in some persons which probably they think it can lead to any stress, add to their mental health in negative way, probably there's other duties. I believe we have a big army and there are a lot of duties which probably that person can be assigned other than sensitive or stressful job. So which can really save a person and which will surely help the army without losing a man. They can really help that person in living with dignity and with live good mental health also. So they should have a lot of extensive programs which before even time it happens, although we cannot bring it to zero level. I understand that, but whatever minimum they can do, that will be really great help on those grounds.
Okay, Major Shashi Asthana, you wanted to make a point, sir.
Sure, Dr. Pankaj has mentioned. Let me tell you the procedure of the psychiatric advice. Anyone asking for psychiatric advice or anyone facing a psychiatric illness, no endorsement is done in his ACR or his records. That's a myth. What normally happens is, whenever he goes for a psychiatric advice and thereafter, if the psychiatrist feels that he is not fit for sensitive jobs, then he is supposed to report to the authorities, that is to his CO through proper channel, through the medical authorities, and then it comes down to CO. And then only this endorsement is made. Normally what happens is, the people who have gone out, they can have a whole lot of, once somebody is out from the army, he can give a lot of excuses as to why certain things happened, why he went through promotion or why he didn't go through promotion, etc., etc. That's a separate issue. But as per procedure, there is, what he is saying is right. It is a form of illness and it is taken as such in the army. No, the psychiatrists, they deal with at least 10, 15, 20, I don't know how many people in a day. Right. But it has never happened that all of them have been put in the record. It's only when the doctor says that he should not be posted and he will put a restriction of employment there, that he should not be posted to sensitive areas, then it is endorsed exactly that. No GD officer, neither a CO or brigade commander or GOC can put those remarks. It is purely meant for the psychiatric specialist doctor only and nobody else. I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I appreciate that clarification. So, Dr. PSV Rao, leaving the last word with you. I'm running out of time, but I'd just like to understand, as Major General Shashi Asthana and Dr. Pankaj Kumar also pointed out, there seems to be then a need to find some sort of a balance between allowing someone to move away from the stigma of seeking help versus, of course, then addressing someone with a larger mental illness with the right way forward, right? Because as Dr. Pankaj pointed out, that people do, because of the stigma that somehow is associated with mental health illnesses, of course that stigma seeps into within the army as well. So how do you feel that going forward, some sort of a balance we can strike where if somebody seeks mental, some sort of mental health support, it's not seen as though it will be a red flag in their larger portfolio or a larger scheme of things?
To avoid stigma, you have to create awareness among both public and the armed forces that someone having a mental illness, like Dr. Pankaj Kumar emphasized, is like any other illness, and that needs to be taken care of and not made into a major stigma. You see, for centuries, suicide has been considered a criminal act. Yes. And it is only now we are decriminalizing it. We have to create awareness that people who have a mental illness need help. They need empathy. They need people to reach out to them and not to isolate them and stigmatize them. And you see, this happened with leprosy. It happened with tuberculosis in the past. These people were isolated. So that is one thing we need to look at. Second, Dr. Pankaj Kumar also mentioned about screening, which I had also mentioned when I was speaking. When I joined medical college, and it was CMC Vellore, 3 days of interview, and they did a lot of screening on our mental health because they didn't want people who couldn't take the stress of medicine. I mean, medical profession is quite stressful, and I am in surgery where it is even more stressful. Third point is that army also has to worry about fratricide, which we have not discussed. We only talked about suicide. You take a person who is stressed out, anxious, and has a mental problem, and you put him in a stressful, in a sensitive posting. He may kill his, not only before killing himself, he may kill a few others whom he is having interpersonal relationship with. So these are all issues that have to be faced. So basically, if you want to reduce the numbers, you have to reach out and create awareness. This is the main thing.
Right.
And as far as I know, the armed forces is making their efforts.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. I thank all of our panelists for joining us. Of course, it's not a perfect system in place right now, but hopefully through these conversations, we educate ourselves and we figure out what could be the possible perfect system.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.